The moment that changed everything happened in full daylight, with the sun standing high and honest above the street, as if it wanted witnesses. I was standing outside my new place with a cardboard box splitting open at the seams, sweat darkening my shirt, my pride already bruised from a morning that had gone wrong in too many small ways to count. That was when my older neighbor noticed me, paused and offered help in a way that sounded simple but landed heavy, like a hand reaching into a storm. In that instant, I didn't know whether to feel embarrassed, relieved, or suspicious of hope itself. What I did know was that I was tired of pretending I had everything under control when I clearly didn't. Before the story pulls you deeper, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet ways strangers can change our lives, take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Touch. Your support helps stories like this reach people who may need them more than they realize. I had moved into the neighborhood that morning under a bright sky that made everything feel exposed. The houses were modest but cared for, lawns trimmed, curtains breathing gently in open windows. It was the kind of place that looked peaceful from the outside, which made my inner chaos feel even louder. My name is Arman Halim, and at that point in my life, peace felt like something I had misplaced and didn't know how to ask for. I was 32, recently laid off from a job I thought would last forever, and carrying the quiet weight of a separation that had hollowed out my confidence. This move wasn't a fresh start as much as it was a retreat, a strategic step backward to a cheaper place where I could think and heal without an audience. The problem was that healing doesn't wait politely for you to settle in. It shows up when your hands are full and your box breaks open, spilling your past onto the driveway. That's what happened when a stack of books slid out and scattered, like birds. I bent down too fast, my back protesting, and that's when I felt eyes on me. Across the low fence stood my neighbor, a man in his early 60s with silver hair that caught the sun and a posture that suggested patience earned the hard way. He had been watering his plants, the slow, steady arc of water glinting like glass. He turned off the hose, rested it against the fence, and walked over with a calm that didn't rush me or pity me. He introduced himself as Idris Calderon later, but in that first moment he was simply a presence that didn't judge. He noticed the way my hands trembled when I stacked the books again, the way I kept glancing at my phone as if bad news might leap out of it. He didn't ask questions that would force me to explain myself. He just offered help, the kind that suggests comfort is not a weakness but a necessity. It was strange how those words, offered in daylight with birds chirping and cars passing by, made my throat tighten. I hesitated because accepting help had become complicated for me. Somewhere along the way, I had learned to measure my worth by how much I could carry alone. Letting someone step in felt like admitting failure. Still, the sun was hot, my back hurt, and my heart was heavier than any box. I nodded, and in doing so, I let the day turn a corner. We started with the obvious things. He helped me carry boxes inside, moving with a careful efficiency that suggested years of practice and a respect for other people's belongings. The house was small but bright, sunlight pouring through the windows and dust dancing in the air like it had been waiting for company. As we worked, I became aware of how quiet it was inside me for the first time in weeks. The noise of self-criticism softened, replaced by the simple rhythm of lifting, placing, breathing. Idris had a way of noticing details without making them feel like flaws. He pointed out how the afternoon light fell perfectly across the living room floor and suggested that the space would feel warmer once the curtains were hung. He showed me how to adjust a stubborn window that refused to stay open and tightened a loose handle on the door with a tool he carried in his pocket like a habit. These small acts felt larger than they were, like stitches closing something torn. As the hours passed, the help shifted from physical to something more subtle. He didn't pry, but he listened when I mentioned, almost accidentally, that I was starting over. He didn't respond with advice or comparisons. He shared a piece of his own life instead, how he had moved into the neighborhood after losing his wife, how daytime had once felt unbearable because it made the absence louder. He talked about learning to sit with discomfort, to let the sun find him again without rushing the process. His words didn't try to fix me, they simply made space. The challenge I faced wasn't just unpacking boxes, it was unpacking the fear that I had made too many mistakes to feel at home anywhere. Every room echoed with questions about what came next, about whether I had the strength to rebuild when I already felt exhausted. There were moments when I wanted to retreat into myself, to smile politely and pretend I was fine. Idris seemed to sense those moments and countered them with practical kindness. He suggested a break, handed me a glass of water, and pointed out the way the day was still wide open, as if reminding me that time hadn't run out. By mid-afternoon, the house began to look lived in, not perfect, not finished, but honest. The couch was in place, the bed assembled, the books lined up like familiar friends. Outside, the neighborhood hummed with ordinary life. Children rode bicycles, a delivery truck rumbled past, and the sky remained clear and generous. I realized that comfort wasn't about having everything figured out. It was about feeling allowed to be where you are, as you are, without apology. The turning point came quietly. Idris stepped back, surveyed the room, and nodded with satisfaction that felt shared. He reminded me that getting comfortable takes time and that there was no deadline on healing. He told me the neighborhood looked out for its own, not in loud ways but in steady ones. When he left, returning to his garden and his afternoon routine, the house didn't feel empty, it felt held. In the days that followed, I noticed changes that surprised me. I slept better. I opened the windows during the day and let light flood in without flinching. I started arranging my space with care instead of indifference. I even ventured outside, sitting on the small front step with a cup of tea, acknowledging passers-by with a nod that felt like belonging. Idris would wave from across the fence, never intrusive, always present. The help he offered that first day had rippled outward, touching corners of my life I hadn't realized were still reachable. The struggle wasn't magically gone. There were mornings when anxiety returned, when the future felt uncertain and sharp. But now I had a reference point, a memory of daylight kindness that reminded me I didn't have to face those moments alone. I learned to ask for help in small ways, to accept it without shrinking. I learned that comfort can be built, plank by plank, through human connection. As the weeks passed, the house truly became a home. Plants appeared on the windowsill, photos found their place on the walls. Laughter returned, first as a quiet sound inside my chest, then as something I shared with neighbors during casual conversations. The neighborhood, once just a backdrop, became a community. All of it traced back to that afternoon when I had been caught outside with my boxes and my pride and offered help without conditions. If this story is touching something inside you right now, if it reminds you of a time when someone showed up for you or when you wished they had, take a moment near the end of this video to like, share, and engage with it. Your interaction helps these stories travel to hearts that might need a reminder that kindness still exists. And before the final moments fade, here's a special request just for you. Please comment below and share what getting comfortable means in your own life right now. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. The sun still shines on that street every day, bright and unashamed. Sometimes I think about how easy it would have been to refuse help, to carry my boxes inside alone and keep my walls intact. I'm grateful I didn't. Because comfort, I learned, isn't about having less pain. It's about having more courage to accept care when it's offered, especially in the clear light of day.